That pick six, man, I tell you, that better not happen in the regular season. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Jay. I'm doing great. And I have to say, my phone was going off like crazy as well on Saturday because of this two interceptions by Daniel Jones. And I was just glad because Brian Daboll left him in there for the entire first half and just let him play his way out of it. You know, like, people don't understand. He is coming off of a serious knee injury. He's ahead of schedule. Normally takes wide receivers, running backs, offensive linemen almost 18 months to come back from something like this and feel really comfortable on the football field. And, you know, he kind of reverted back to like the nervous, I'm going to throw an interception, Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden in the second quarter, and especially late in the second quarter, you saw the back shoulder throws. You saw the aggressive down the field throws. You saw him finally settle in. And
The one to Slayton down the left sideline there was needed that desperately.
Or how about the catch by Malik Neighbors?
That was more Malik Neighbors and Daniel Jones, I feel like. But that's a
part of it, though. That is a part of it.
No, I know, but it was after the two interceptions, the one to Slayton. Like, it was like he needed that throw. I think the Neighbors one was before the second interception.
Yeah, but he also made a great throw to Jalen Hyatt, and unfortunately, Jalen Hyatt doesn't keep his feet in bounds.
Yeah.
But what I saw and what I felt were two different things. One, I felt it was cringeworthy the way the game started. And it was like leading into all of the anti-Daniel Jones people, the bashers, the whole thing. Then as the game wore on, what I recognized is what Brian Daboll was doing. And what Brian Daboll was doing was, listen, you're staying out there. We're going to throw the ball, and we're going to get you into this. And we're going to get this thing moving down the field. And I saw a lot of aggressive play calling. One-on-one on the outside, we're going for it down the field. And that was really encouraging. I thought the offensive line was encouraging. I mean, there was a lot of things. Devin Singletary carried the ball 10 times in a preseason game. So that tells me that Brian Daboll's not messing around over there. Brian Daboll is trying to get this team on edge, trying to create a competitive angle to what they're trying to build and not have a malaise that is associated and has been associated with this team over the last, except for his first year here, the last 10 years, whatever you want to call it. But I would just say I was really encouraged with watching the ball being thrown downfield, down the sidelines. This is the kind of thing that offensive coaches in the league, and I'll give you a prime example of it. Guy was a great quarterback. Guy was a tough quarterback. Guy was a smart quarterback. But a guy was a careful quarterback, and his name was Alex Smith. And he was really good with Andy Reid in Kansas City. But there were games in which Alex just wouldn't let it rip down the sideline. He'd always want to drop it off, thump it off. He wouldn't want to make a mistake. Kind of the way that Russell Wilson was playing in Denver the last 2 years. Like, he just wouldn't let it go. And I think that Brian Daboll is trying to get Daniel Jones, look, man, we got wide receivers that can play. You got to give them a chance to go after the ball. And I felt like a much more aggressive play calling, especially in the second quarter. And I actually liked what I saw. And it made me forget about the mistakes that he made early on because I can say and sit here and say that none of this means anything because it doesn't. And Daniel just had to kind of play his way into the game, understand that he could take a hit, that the knee was going to be okay, it was going to be stable. And then once he finally settled down, that's the giant offense that I think that Brian Daboll's trying to get to.
Yeah, and I'm with you on none of it mean anything. We can go on and give you examples of that. But what happens with Daniel Jones, and this is going to happen early on in the regular season as well, is he's got no more benefit of the doubt. We've seen him so much. All the stuff that are explanations, that are reasonable explanations like you are giving about how it's going to take a long time for him to feel right again, and the injury was a catastrophic injury that he's coming back from, and he's also dealing with a new offensive line and a new running back and a rookie wide receiver and all these things that are true. The problem is that we've seen Daniel Jones year in, year out, inconsistent play, injuries. So if you're a Giants fan or anybody that pays attention to this team and you see him play poorly even in a preseason game that doesn't count, you go, here we go again. The guy sucks. And you can't you can't blame any fan for going to that mentality right away because they've seen it for so many years.
Yeah, I know. I'm not blaming fans for anything. I'm not blaming fans for reactions because I know reactions are immediate, and then all of a sudden things change in the body of a game, and you start feeling a little bit better about what you're watching. So, again, what I saw and what I listened to with Phil and Carl and Bob Papa.
Carl had a favorite word in that game, by the way.
Oh, he did.
Catastrophize. He said that like 6 or 7 times. Like, I don't want to catastrophize this. When he was talking about Daniel Jones, like, I really don't want to catastrophize this. But he was more critical of him than he normally is. But he said, this was bad. This was a bad decision, on and on. So,
and really what it comes down to for us as quarterbacks is our decision making. And we all know and we all remember that first game in Tennessee a couple years back, where Brian Daboll just basically lit into Daniel Jones about that decision-making. So better it comes in these preseason games and let him get his feet underneath him and let him make sure that knee is right. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, and especially with the changes that are going on. But I will say I was genuinely encouraged by watching the ball being thrown downfield. And I think that with Brian Daboll now calling the plays, we're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a silly take from someone who didn't play in these games, but do you think that it's easier for Daniel Jones to let go and throw the ball down the field in a preseason game, and in the regular season he's going to be a little more tentative?
He's not going to be tentative. I don't see that. I see what I see, honestly, is we know that they tried to replace him in the offseason. Now what I see is a head coach calling the plays. The head coach is an old school coach and is a little bit get into your face guy, and I see a guy that's going to be calling plays aggressively down the field, and he's going to be telling his quarterback, "Let's go, let's go." He's going to be all over him, and I kind of like that. I kind of like get that out of Daniel Jones, and you got to take opportunities when they present themselves, and you can't just overlook things. And I'm not saying that you go out there and you make plays up but when you see bump and run on those wide receivers, Darius Slayton, he's really come into his own. I think Jalen Hyatt's going to be good. I think Wanda Robinson's going to be good. And Malik Neighbors, we already saw in practice and now in a preseason game what he's capable of doing. Now it's up to the coach to be aggressive and to stay on his quarterback. That's really what it comes down to, because, look, the only way they're keeping him, Daniel Jones, is if he goes out and has a monster year. You know that, and I know that, and really,
it's got to be a repeat of a couple of years ago.
Yes, it's got to be that year where he gets them to the playoffs, or at least gets them to a winning record. They cannot be non-competitive in some games.
Yes, like 40-0 to kick off the season last year when everybody was healthy.
Can't have it.
Yeah.
And I see an edge, and I'm sure we'll feel this tomorrow when we're at camp with the Giants, that there is an edge that is coming from the head coach, and I think there is a.
Well, that's been the case since he's gotten here.
Yeah, but I think what happens is, like, when you lose your quarterback and another guy gets hurt, and all of a sudden you get into the malaise, and we kid about Rob Saleh texting with Joe Beningo, but that's the way that Brian Daboll probably handled the last couple of years. I'm like, damn, quarterback's hurt again, and if he's hurt, we don't really have a chance to win. And he is just putting pedal to the metal. That's what I feel like that Brian Daboll's doing.
Yeah, I hope so, because
good.
that'll be a lot more fun to watch if he does call plays like that. And we are going to be at Giants camp tomorrow. We're going to talk to Brian Daboll. We're going to talk to Daniel Jones. We're going to talk to Joe Schoen. Now, I know this is something that has nothing really to do with Brian Daboll, but I will say that there's been 2 other examples in recent memory where a head coach in an offseason dramatically changed the way that he looked, and it didn't work out. You had Ben McAdoo, and you had Rex Ryan lose all that weight, and it felt like everything changed. So I'm going to bring this up to Brian and be like, listen, you could be the 3rd guy to completely change your image and then fall off a cliff here in New York. You could be.
I mean, you're forgetting there's another guy that did that.
Who's that?
You were Fat Gio.
I didn't fall off a cliff and get fired.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
So this doesn't work.
The point being is, like, you can lose weight and keep your job and do well.
Well, not as a head coach, apparently, in New York, because and Ben McAdoo wasn't a weight thing. It was a image thing. It was a haircut, clothes thing. you know?
Yeah, well, we showed up and he looked like the Dutch boy painter, and he had that big old jacket with the big shoulder pads in it.
Right.
I mean, he looked like what he should have looked like, a football coach.
Yeah.
And then the next year he comes back and he looks like a male model.
This is what I'm saying.
Brian Daboll is not a male model.
I'm saying.
He is not a male model.
He's getting
I don't
close.
care how much weight he loses. I don't care how many.
When you change who you are like that, that's when you start.
But it's healthy. It's good. It's good for him.
I know it's healthy for him. I'm just saying he better. Did you see him though? Here's the thing I worry about now. Did you see him after the pick six? Wasn't yelling. He was just standing there.
Because he knows the cameras are on him.
Yeah, I know, but he knew the cameras on the last 2 years. He used to chew people out and spit them out in the sideline.
Yeah, no.
To rip their guts out and do jump ropes with their intestines.
2 years ago, he did not realize just how much the camera is on him.
I don't want him to change, man. I don't want him to change.
Believe me, he's not changing. He's going to be edgy. And I think he's trying.
I saw a calmer man.
The way I look at it, like I don't know about, well, you and I kind of played for the same high school football coach. So I always refer back to this because I know you and I understand what being on edge is like.
Yeah.
Like the moment you stepped on the practice field for your coach and for my coach, we were on edge.
Yeah, I mean, I always give the example of I am still deathly afraid to be late to this day to anything. Yeah. Because of high school football.
Yes.
Because if you ran up late to the practice field when, we were in the horseshoe and the coaches were already there and you ran, like you were the biggest jerk on 2 feet.
And look, man, and there was always good cop, bad cop. You always had the assistant coach, like a guy. I had a guy by the name
You had
of
a good cop? We didn't have a good cop.
We had Doc Holliday, and he was always the guy that, would calm the waters. He would always take care of us. He'd always say, don't worry about it. He's just getting on you. And then Sal would show up, and he'd be screaming at you. And, and I think the edge that Brian Daboll is trying to bring to the Giants, a competitive edge, that everybody on this team is going to be competing their ass off, that nobody is going to give in to anything, that nobody, and I'm sure he's playing this 1,000 times over, all of the naysayers, all the people say, the Giants have the worst roster in football. The Giants are going to win 6 games. The Giants are going to do this. The Giants are going to do that. I guarantee you he's got that in front of the players on a constant basis to make sure that these players come into the season on edge with realistic expectations to actually win games. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I hope so. That's a playbook. That's a playbook coaches have used for a long time, the disrespect thing. I do think they've got more talent than we have seen been evaluated out there. I mean, I know there's some people that live by Pro Football Focus, others that think it's a joke, but I mean, for them to be ranked 30th or 31st out of the rosters in the NFL, just that doesn't seem right to me.
But again, that's part of the story going into the season. And I think Phil said it on Saturday. It was like, this is like a gift to a coach. And I'm like, what's the gift? The gift is the 5 turnovers. Because the 5 turnovers are teaching and coaching points that when they step on the practice field, he's going to be in everybody's ear talking about that. And, these are, it's bad and it's good. It's bad because you don't want to have turnovers, but it's good because now you have something to teach, something to coach, something to scream about, and something to intensify practice with. I mean, I could see them right now telling the defense, let's go, start ripping the ball out, create turnovers in practice. So our Giant offensive players will get used to not turning the ball over.
Yeah, so it's a lot of Daniel Jones, and that's what the Giants season is going to be. He's going to be a main focus, but there's a lot of other guys that could help out, including on that defense. They got to get a pass rush because their secondary is, on paper, very inexperienced, not great. I know there's a lot of Giant fans that were hoping they would sign Stephon Gilmore, who ended up going to the Vikings on a $7 million one-year deal. It was interesting because Art Stapleton, who covers the team, and I like Art, he basically said that Joe Schoen he was trying to think like Joe Schoen and say, all right, am I going to spend $7 million on a one-year deal for this guy when maybe we're not projected to go to the playoffs this year? I'm thinking, is that what Joe Shane is thinking right now? I mean, did Brian Daboll and Joe Shane thinking, like, I'm not going to spend $7 million to improve this secondary because I don't think we're going to the playoffs this year?
I think that there are two things that are keeping the coach and the GM and the front office up at night. One is the general health and overall productivity of Daniel Jones. And number two, what is their secondary going to look like? And are these young guys going to be able to, hold up against some of the best wide receivers that they're going to see in football? And I'm saying CeeDee Lamb will be back with the Cowboys eventually, but they start right out with Justin Jefferson. And if you're Sam Darnold or whoever the Vikings are trying to trade for, because there's all sorts of rumors out there, you gotta believe.
What are you hearing?
That they called the Saints for Derek Carr.
Yeah, was there anything else though? I heard that.
That's what
you said. All sorts of rumors that implies more than one.
Yeah, they're making calls around the league and they're trying to figure it.
Trying to figure it out. You're the insider. You sit here.
I guarantee you
throwing stuff out there.
All right, I guarantee you they reached out to Ryan Tannehill.
All right, it's not exciting.
There's nothing they're not trading.
You got to give me some juice.
Juice.
They're
trading
all
for
sorts of rumors. They get me excited here.
They're going to try to trade for Justin Herbert. Does that make you feel better?
Good. Yes, no, actually, that would be great. That would be great.
They're not doing that. Any top 15 quarterback is out of play.
That's too bad.
But you're a Sam Darnold guy now.
Well, I think he's going to be better than people think.
Okay, that's fine.
That's all.
But you are now a Sam Darnold guy. You are. You said that he's going to have a great year.
I said,
you thought that he was going to be the starting quarterback even before J.J. McCarthy got hurt.
I said, don't write him off yet. I could see in the future how he could be in a conversation for a comeback player of the year. And then I also have said, if he can't do it this year, if he can't do it in this situation, then he needs to retire.
Well, he's kind of like where Daniel Jones is in his career.
Well, not quite. Because, he's been bouncing around as a backup now, Sam. He never got the big contract. He's been on, this is his fourth team. It's not really a great comparison, but I appreciate your effort.
I'm glad you appreciate it. I mean, when I say that the Minnesota Vikings are exploring all options as other quarterbacks are sitting out there, again, they're not getting Joe Burrow. They're not getting Lamar Jackson.
I know.
They're not getting Deshaun Watson.
But you said all sorts of rumors. You got me all. Got my.
There are all sorts of rumors out there, but there's not much to pick from.
I understand. I know, but hey, Sam will be fine. You got Nick Mullins there, and away we go.
Hey, big Nick Mullins actually won some games.
Yeah, I know.
He didn't play bad for San Francisco.
No, I know. He didn't play well. He's a good backup quarterback.
He's a journeyman quarterback.
He's a good backup quarterback.
You like it for 2 weeks, and then the more you see, the less you like it.
Exactly. All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and TBS Sports Network.